What's up, everybody? Welcome to News, Games, and More, IGN's daily live news show. I'm Damon Hatfield. I will be your guide today, and I'm joined by Janet Garcia from our guides team.
Hey.
Matt Kim from our news team.
Hello.
And Zach Ryan from our social team.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody? I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. It is April 28th. We're going to talk about how the Final Fantasy VII remake game, the next part could be smaller than the first one. We're going to talk about what's next for Battlefield and Google Stadia. Switch ports, so surprising. Even the developer was unaware. Jan, if you wrote that, that's pretty good. But first, I want to shout out some cool things that are happening on IGN Live later this week. If you don't have any other plans, if you don't have anywhere to be Wednesday and Thursday night, Watch From Home Theater has 2 episodes this week. Wednesday night at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Sync up with us for Star Trek First Contact with director Jonathan Frakes. And then Thursday night at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, get your Netflix queued up for Extraction. And Chris Hemsworth will make a special guest appearance as we watch along with director Sam Hargrave and the Russo brothers. I repeat, Chris Hemsworth is going to be on our show this Thursday. So join us on youtube.com/IGN or youtube.com/Cinefix or right here at good old reliable IGN.com. And be sure to submit your questions for Jonathan, Sam, or the Russos using the hashtag WFHTheater on Twitter, and we might get them answered on the show. Have any of you guys watched Extraction yet?
No, but I did see that it is the #1 trending film in America.
Well, yeah.
On Netflix.
I haven't watched it either, but I like a good action movie. And in the comments of our announcement on IGN, a lot of people said they enjoyed it and that the action scenes are good. So I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, I heard it's really cool. It's directed by Chris Hemsworth, stunt double, I think.
Really?
Right?
Really?
Yeah. I think that's what the gist is the dude is like his stunt double. I might have made that up. I'm sorry if I did, but I feel like I heard that from a reputable source, perhaps the ImagineGamesNetwork.com.
The Imagine Games Network.
What's that?
And which one was Star Trek First Contact?
That's the one with the Borg.
From do you know you have a year on that? Is it from the 90s? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I saw that one.
Data prominently featured in that film. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into the content for today. Today we learned Final Fantasy Remake, the producer, Final Fantasy VII Remake, wants to keep developing small chunks at a fast pace. Co-director Tetsuya Nomura has said that he would like to deliver the next part, Final Fantasy VII Remake story, quickly, and to do so would require focusing on a smaller portion of the overall plot. When asked about how many parts the remake will consist of, the other co-director, Kitase, said, "We have a rough idea on that, but it's not been completely decided yet. It's impossible to talk about this right now. It seems that many people think it will become a trilogy." And then Nomura added, "It all depends on how many parts we make. If we separate into bigger chunks, it will take more time. But if we take smaller portions, it can be done in a shorter span. Personally, I would like to deliver it fast." Do we take this to mean that the next part is going to be at least a smaller part of the original game's story? How do you interpret this?
Well, it's a weird juxtaposition here, right? Because the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake was a small part of the original game, fleshed out into a 30-hour adventure. So do they mean they want to take small portions of the is the next portion of that game, up through, I don't know, all the stuff with Sid Highwind, or is it is he talking about releasing multiple small episodic portions of this game in a remake capacity? I don't know. I'm a little unclear as to what specifically he's talking about, but either way, more of that story faster is thumbs up in my book.
Yeah.
I think if it's faster, it would have to be smaller in the scope of the game. So the game would be less hours, because making it a smaller portion wouldn't, in my mind, I don't see how that would help speed up development if it's the same length, unless they were planning on it's either going to be that or it's the same length, but there's going to be a lot more games than maybe we anticipate. If it really is a smaller portion of the story, that means that it would take a lot of games in order to actually get through it in its entirety.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they don't have a concrete number, and that could change, they have an idea. I don't know. It sounds weird. It sounds like a weird thing, a small portion of the overall plot, but Zach's right. The first part is also a small portion, but I don't imagine that they're gonna flesh the next parts out, are they? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the hot topic, right? I think the more alarming statement is that they don't know how many parts it's going to be. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
you just
and
put
so
that
like,
first part out.
is the next part a full $60 retail release, or is it like a smaller downloadable chapter that they add, in a few months?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that as an option of like just downloading extra stuff. Yeah, like I also like that it's, and this could also be like a translation thing, but like, there's no way for us to kind of know this. I mean, it's clear that they decided not to make it a priority to plan that out. Like that was not a requirement before releasing the first one. So yeah, it's kind of in a strange spot. I know people don't really like this being called an episodic game because it's not exactly that, but it's also not really a series, so it's in this weird position. Because traditionally, like if you did have an episodic game, you'd have like, you might not know when the next like episode's coming out, but you have the option to buy it in its entirety and then just kind of wait for the extras to come in, or which doesn't really happen as much anymore. You could even buy the episodes individually. A lot of games that are episodic now just do it where you buy maybe the first one on its own, and then you have to like pay for all of it. That's what happened with Life is Strange 2. So it's also in this, it's just in a really odd position, and it seems like it's not, I don't know, how much does this detract from your guys' experience if you guys have played it? Did it feel weird not getting to see the rest of the story? Did it not matter because you either didn't play the first one or you already know what happened? Like,
Well, so I think Zach's still only one of us that has finished it. Is that right?
Is that true?
yeah, I'm close-ish, but
Yeah, I'm still working on
for
it.
a while.
Matt, are you playing it? I forget.
I'm playing the original because I've never played the original. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I want to beat that.
Let me know what happens.
Yeah, right. I want to beat that before I start the remake. But it's a long game. And I can't. I mean, look, if let's say they go smaller to release it faster, it's gonna be like 10 parts or something like that because it's really long. The original, it's nuts. I can't imagine that would be the solution. Like, if they're saying that people think it's a trilogy, and I get it, maybe it's gonna be longer than trilogy, but like, it'll be untenable if they release 10 parts of Final Fantasy VII remake, or something along that ballpark. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, and like how much is the whole, when it's all said and done, how much is it all going to cost just to play this remake of a game, a PlayStation 1 game from 1997?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question.
A lot.
Like, it's gonna cost a lot. It's gonna cost a lot.
It's gonna be like the Marvel collection of the cinematic universe movies. It's like you're really gonna like tie them all together to get the full scope of the experience. Yeah, it's a weird position. I think it's gonna be a long time.
I just hope we don't have a Star Wars sequels situation where it just becomes apparent that they had no plan to see this through to the end. Like they just like put the first part out, and then they're like, well, we'll just, after this one's out, we'll figure out what we're gonna do next.
I think speaking from like a scenario perspective, just the way that game, I'm trying to tiptoe around this. The way that game ends leads me to believe that they have their next steps in place. Like it makes me think that they definitely have a plan for it. It's my hope, like the way that it ends, I thought it would be great if they would use this battle system and use these assets and turn around like another part in a year, 18 months. Like it would be awesome if during Summer of Gaming, Square would show up and say like, okay, and here is a teaser or a trailer for Final Fantasy Remake Part 2, and you'll have it by next summer. And then the third part is, 18 months to 2 years down the road after that, and then that's it. But the fact, like I said it earlier, but the fact that they're like, oh, we don't know, it's impossible to say how many parts
it's impossible to talk
about
this.
We don't have the technology.
It's impossible to talk about this.
Well, we're doing that right now.
The game just made you billions of dollars. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. It's a little alarming.
Yeah, I also hope we don't have a Resident Evil 3 situation where Resident Evil 2 remake came out. It was great. Then Resident Evil 3 is out, the remake a year later. Also great, but it's half the game the first one was, and they still charge us $60 for it,
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that the case with the original? Like I was looking it up and I like put it in the Reddit show, but like the original Resident Evil 3 was like, according to How Long to Beat, which like I know a lot of people use to kind of get a sense of how long a game is, it was like 6 hours, and the remake is also 6 hours. So wasn't that like also the case back then, or was it cheaper?
No, but when you're, I was just gonna say, when you're remaking a game, you have the chance to rectify that problem.
Right.
Right. And I think it sort of depends. Like, I think you can beat Resident Evil 3 in 6 hours if you know what you're doing with it. But like, you just played Resident Evil 3, right, Damon?
Yeah, it took me 8 hours, but yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that from a good amount.
After you beat your first campaign in Resident Evil 2, you get to play a different campaign, which extends the game by another 5-6 hours.
Right.
I haven't actually played through Resident Evil 3 Remake yet, but I kind of get the sense, just like hearing people talk about it, both in the now and in reference to the original games, that the third one just wasn't ever as good as the second. So they're like, hey, the third still not as good as second because it's still the same base game, like at its core. So that's more of the vibe I got from that personally. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see at the very least, like what the team changes in part 2 versus like part 1. Like, are they gonna make it more open? Is it? And I don't know, once again, the original story and how it would line up with that. But it'll be interesting to see if it lives up to what part 1 was, or if it'll just be like more of the same.
Mm-hmm. Any guesses to when the next part of Final Fantasy VII Remake is out?
2024.
God.
Will it be this year?
I'm gonna go optimistic. I'm gonna go optimistic on this.
Okay.
And say that we will see the sequel by summer 2020. 2022. Sorry.
2022?
Yeah. 2 years. I think 2 years is.
But they're saying they want to put out smaller chunks faster.
I don't think that they'll allow them to do that. Like, I don't think Square will allow them to do that. I think that, like, also I think if they release a 30 to 40 hour like full length, RPG, and then the next one is like 3 or 4 hours and tells a smaller portion, I think people are going to revolt and just won't buy it. Like, I think that this game, I think it needs to be at maximum 3 parts. I think there needs to be like a short duration in between each of those parts. And I think each of those parts needs to have like a full encompassing story. Like the Midgar portion of the original Final Fantasy VII is only a part of that game, like a tiny part, but it could be a much, much larger part of this retelling of that story, just given how fleshed out it is, So, yeah.
No, I'm with Zach here, and I know Square, and especially oh my god, why am I blanking on his name? The guy, Nomura.
Yes.
I know he gets a bad rep for taking years on projects, but that's sort of why they gave him a co-director with Katase, who's known for shipping projects. So I think it won't be the 5-6 year wait that it took to get to remake part 1. I think 2022 is actually a pretty good bet.
Yeah, so a PlayStation 5 release then.
Mm-hmm.
Then I guess the real question will be, can the whole thing be finished before PlayStation 6 is out? Zach, no spoilers. I know the ending to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1, they took some liberties with it, but like, whatever it is, did you like it? Do you think it's cool?
So, well, I have a complicated history with Final Fantasy VII, and I'm not a huge fan of the original. I liked it as a kid, and then going back to it as an adult to replay it, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty bad. Like, it's an interesting story told in a bad way, and the gameplay itself is like really boring. So by the time I got to the end of this remake and saw what they were doing with this story, I was all in, because it's like, it's really, really clever. Like, I won't say anything else, but like, I feel like it's probably one of the most dichotomous games I think I've played in recent years, because I think you either, like myself, love it and see it as something that's like, wow, that's really smart, or you hate it and you're like, damn, they changed this so much, I hate it. Like,
yeah. I originally was going to actually just play the remake once it came out, because I'm already past that part in part 1 in the original game, right? And I figure, well, I've already done that, so I can just go back and play the remake, and then like I'll know what happens. But then people were telling me that the ending was different and changes things, and they recommended that I play all of the original 7 before I go and jump into the remake.
That's interesting.
So as I will say, just knowing what I know about this game, and given what I said about the original game, I would also suggest playing the original if you haven't played it before playing the remake.
Yeah. I don't really like JRPGs. I only really got into them recently. So I've missed out on a lot of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and stuff like that growing up. But I'm revisiting it.
Nice.
Covering my blind spots.
Yeah.
Having a good time.
I also want to point out the Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the rare Japanese games where I prefer to play with the English voice track, because I think it's so good. I usually always switch to Japanese, but not this time.
That's really interesting because I feel like in the same way that the ending is kind of bifurcated audiences, like the voice acting is the same. Like some people, I think the voice acting is also very good, but I've heard a lot of people on staff and elsewhere. Like actually, Dunkey just put out his review today, and he bashes the voice acting, and people are like pissed about it. He was trending on Twitter today because people are like, "Oh, he's bashing the voice acting, and it's so good." But I've heard that same sentiment from a lot of people. So,
what did you think?
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
I think it's great.
Especially
the voice acting's fine. I think the writing's really bad, but the voice acting's fine.
I think some of the writing is really bad.
The unfortunate part is I'm on chapter 11 or 12 now. I'm really hoping to finish the game like any second now. It's taken a while.
I think there are 18 chapters.
Yeah, there's 18 chapters.
Yeah.
Spoilers if you didn't want to know that, but yeah. So the worst writing is in the beginning, it seems. Like the first few chapters, it's just painful. It's just painfully bad. And if you like schlocky writing, you'll think it's fine. And if you like anime writing that's also bad, you'll think it's fine. But like I just don't like it. Like, and I feel like that's also been polarizing for people one way or the other. Some people are like, oh, I love it. It's so cute. And they're just a fun group of friends. And I'm like, I literally feel embarrassed playing this game and hearing what is being said because it's so bad.
I felt that way. That way playing the demo. Especially like characters like Barrett, where he's just like screaming nonsense at the beginning, where he's just like, "Oh, can't you hear the planet?" It's just like, okay, dude. But there's a reason for that. Like later, as you get to know that character, you realize that like that's the act that he's putting on. He wants to be that person in front of Cloud, and so it kind of makes sense in retrospect. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The game is anime as hell. Like it is.
Yeah, like Aerith is like somehow extremely powerful, but also really dumb. And Jesse's like somehow really talented, but also like really annoyingly thirsty. And it's really rough. I feel like it goes back to normal. Like once you get further in, like suddenly they're just doing a quest and it's not a big deal. But like the beginning, like if it wasn't for me playing it for work, I wouldn't have seen it through because it's that poorly written. The combat's great though.
We also talked on an episode recently where you're not really an anime fan, right?
No, but I wouldn't say that's because I don't think anime is good. I just haven't gotten into it. But like I feel like I don't like when people use that as like, oh, it's anime. I'm like, not all anime is poorly written. Like it does have tropes and like cheesiness, but like maybe like that one's maybe it's also bad. Like I don't know. Like it doesn't make it better. It just makes it more like normal, I guess. But yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the writing is like in the remake, but as someone who's currently making his way through the original, I'll say like there's something to be said about broad strokes. Like I'm digging it a lot actually. Like I'm having a great time. I identify with Barrett and his whole cause. And like yeah, it's melodramatic in that very over the top 80s 90s anime kind of way, but at the same time it's a journey to save the planet from an evil corporation with your friends, right?
Someone pointed out that like in the old one, it feels less that way, even if it's kind of the same level of writing because it's not voice acted. So I think that might be people associate. I think some people misassociate the voice acting with the writing, like like this is like bad, but I'm like, well, they're reading something that's kind of cheesy, so like they're doing a sense, but it's of a cheesy line. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yep.
No.
I don't think I'd ever quite say that, no, but I didn't watch what he had to say, so I can't really comment on that.
Maybe Janet, maybe you should turn the Japanese language on and it'll make them sound smarter.
Maybe, but yeah, I think it's okay now. It's reached it's leveled up.
Okay. All right, let's move on beyond Final Fantasy VII Remake to some updates on Battlefield and Battlefront. We found out today, or I guess today EA gave us the first confirmation. DICE gave us the first confirmation that the next Battlefield game will be coming in 2021. And I guess the last one was Battlefield 5. That was after 1, right? And Battlefield 5 was in 2018, fall of 2018. Is that right? So we'll be looking at 3 years in between Battlefields. We also found out DICE has announced that the Battle on Scarif update will arrive for Star Wars Battlefront 2 tomorrow, April 29th. That's going to be the last regular content update for that game. And that follows news that the June content update for Battlefield 5 will also be that game's last. So if they're finished with Battlefield 5 and Battlefront 2, and Battlefield isn't coming until next year. What is EA going to have this fall? I mean, aside from their annual sports offerings.
Nothing.
Star
Mostly
Wars.
just sports.
Star Wars what, though?
There's got to be something Star Wars coming down. Like, they just wouldn't let that lie, I don't think. Like, there's got to be some Star Wars something that's in development that we don't know about, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for sure the
ahead.
sports games.
Well, yeah, we know that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
What would you like the next Star Wars game to be?
I don't know. I was in the rare position that I was kind of like lukewarm on Fallen Order. I thought it was like good, not great. Honestly, I think my ideal Star Wars game right now would be like a new entry in the Knights of the Old Republic series, but just made with modern sensibilities and a different cast. Like I love Knights of the Old Republic, and I think that'd be a cool thing to go back to. But I don't know if that's in the books.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Our producer is working behind the scenes, says he wants Star Wars 1313, but I'm afraid that ship has sailed. Yeah.
Whoa, did we both just say ship has sailed? That's weird.
We did.
Because that means it's really over. 2 people said it's shipped.
there's a good chance EA is hunkering down this year, calling this year a sort of like do-over and reset for the following year, because they announced last year during an earnings call that there would be no Battlefield game this year. The Battlefront thing is messing me up.
I know.
Battlefield game, there will not be one this year, despite it being annual to semi-annual release. So this could be a long-term plan for the company to sort of like, okay, we'll take a year and then really just like build up the foundations, because Battlefield 5 was a quote disappointment when it came to player count and sales, according to EA's chief Andrew Wilson. So there's a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done over at that place. Battlefield's not doing so hot after 5. Battlefront 2 had that really rocky start, and it took.
But they turned it around.
Yeah, but that's like one of those games that has become beloved in post-release. Like people still play that game constantly and absolutely like adore it.
Yeah, and I think Jedi Fallen Order did really well for them.
Yep.
Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order did really well. Yeah, it sold a lot.
That was a Respawn joint, and Respawn head Vince Zampella was recently promoted to oversee DICE LA, which is being spun off into its own thing. So DICE LA used to be a support studio for EA DICE, which is based in Stockholm, and they did a lot of like support dev, so they never really made their own games. But under Zampella, they plan on rebranding, renaming themselves, becoming their own independent identity, and like hopefully create some new things.
That'd be cool. Jason Christoph in chat over on YouTube does point out, he says, Star Wars High Republic game in the works, question mark. Yeah, they announced the High Republic as this like new era where stories would take place earlier this year. Yeah. So that could be something cool. That could be a really easy way to explore, some characters or different storylines through a game. It's just set it in the High Republic era.
Yeah.
Which is, as we know, is like old Star Wars. Yeah.
Ancient Star Wars,
yeah.
And like we were just talking, they really were able to turn Battlefront 2 around and end up making that a success story. But as they sort of put that one to rest without any more substantial updates, do we think there will ever be a Battlefront 3?
I don't know.
It could be a situation of like, do we need one? Or is there enough content in that? Like, are they just going to make another Star Wars, multiplayer shooter?
I think the Battlefront
for all the same characters
at least the EA ones have been really dependent on the movies, and the fact that there's no movies coming out in the foreseeable future kind of puts that series to a hold.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I think that there will always be an audience for any sort of franchised shooter like that. There will always be people that want to return to the Battlefield franchise because they love historically accurate World War I, World War II shooters. There'll always be an audience for Battlefront because people love to play as stormtroopers versus rebels. Yeah.
Janet, do you play either game, Battlefront or Battlefield?
I don't. But as far as like stuff for EA, like in the future, I agree with Zach. I was also like lukewarm on Fallen Order, but for me, that was mainly because I had extreme performance. I was playing on a base Xbox One, and it was really, really like laggy. So I kind of really couldn't get into it for that reason. And I also felt like some of the mechanics felt a bit dated. It reminded me a lot of the things I loved in the PS2, PS3 era, but that kind of felt like ground that was retreaded for not the best reasons necessarily, or it didn't feel terribly effective to me. As far as other things from EA, I would love to see them do more stuff with EA Originals. Like those games are kind of hit or miss for me, but I love that they have that as a sector of what they do. And I think there's a lot of like unique and interesting experiences that come out of those. So that's what I'm hoping to hear from. And that's also, since it's smaller, I feel like that's, I don't want to say easier to do and downplay like the work that goes into it, but they kind of have a lineup and a rotation that they're working through. So I'd like to see more. And
EA Originals has given us stuff like Unravel, Get Out.
Faye.
Is that right?
Yeah, Sea of Solitude.
Yeah. Johnny Rial points out, no more Battlefront games. EA's license deal with Lucasfilms is going to expire. That's actually a really great point. I believe their contract is up with Lucasfilm at the end of this year. And if that's the case, then yeah, they might be out of Star Wars goodness there.
Certainly could be, renegotiated though.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I can't imagine who else maybe has the money to purchase that license again or re-up that license besides EA. But yeah.
I don't know if Johnny Rial is his real name, but I'm going to just assume that it's a shout out to Beastie Boys.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, hey, actually, that reminds me. I was going to ask you if you've watched that Beastie Boys documentary.
Not yet, because I didn't think we had Apple Plus, but it turns out we do have it because my wife got a new iPhone recently. So
sick.
I'm going to watch it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, as Matt was saying, the Battlefield franchise finds it in a weird spot because like Battlefield 5 was just such kind of a mess, even from from the moment it was announced, and I don't know what that community looks like today. It's like when Battlefield comes back in 2021, what does that game look like? Does it go back to a modern setting or a near future setting? What do you think?
I mean, I don't play Battlefield, so I don't really have a dog in this fight, but I do think it would be cool to do like a near future setting. I feel like there have been Battlefields that have been set in the future, but
Battlefield 2142.
Yeah.
Not really a near future, but
near-ish.
I could see like a modern setting work well. I don't know. The Battlefield and the Call of Duty franchise have kind of been step in step, One does World War II again, the other one does World War I, and then World War II, So I kind of, if we're gonna base it like that, the fact that Call of Duty just put out Modern Warfare might be a good indicator for where Battlefield might go next.
Good point.
Yeah. But I like that series. I really liked Battlefield 1, and I like Battlefield 5, but only when I was playing with friends. I never really had any like motivation to go visit it when I wasn't playing with them for a little while, and it was fine. I think there was one point after Battlefield 5 came out where Battlefield 1 had more player count, more concurrent players. So, and that was like a game from 2 years ago. So before Battlefield 5 came out, which that's how that game did poorly.
Did Battlefield 5's Battle Royale mode ever come out?
Yes, and it came out late, and it was just people just didn't care by then, because by then Apex and Fortnite and PUBG were all dominating the space.
Well, speaking of PUBG, let's move on to our next topic. Did everybody wake up early to watch the Stadia Connect this morning?
Wasn't it at 9 a.m.?
Yeah, it was at 9 a.m.
I woke up early, but I didn't end up watching it because I didn't plan to.
I wrote that story, so.
Well, Google Stadia held one of their like Nintendo Direct style videos this morning where they announced some new games that are coming to the platform, and I just think it's interesting. For the most part, they're announcing either older games that are already available on other platforms will be coming to the service at some point in the future, or they're announcing just sort of like smaller games that I don't know that are really going to be, I would say, system seller, but subscription sellers. Anyway, what they announced is that PUBG is out today. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will be available this fall, and so like that's a 6-month-old game that's going to be available later on this year. They also said that Madden and FIFA will be available in the winter, but they didn't say which Madden or FIFA. Like, is it going to be Madden 20 or Madden 21?
Yeah.
Madden 21.
Well, but why not specify that is what I wonder.
Because they didn't announce 21 yet.
Yeah.
Really? Is that all it is?
Yeah, I mean, like we know the next Madden and FIFA are coming, and we know what the number's going to be, but they don't like announcing that,
Yeah, I feel like even with Just Dance, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I think Just Dance was in that position for a while before 2020 was like officially announced and going out.
Gotcha. All right, well that makes sense.
That reminds me, if you guys haven't yet, you should tune in to our Reviews Editors podcast. He's doing a weekly podcast now where he talks about the games that he's reviewing, and it's called Just Dan.
Is it really?
No, what?
Oh,
No,
I believe you.
I'd listen to that. What?
Yeah, it's gonna be off the charts on all the podcasts. It would be hilarious if the Madden FIFA games were extremely old for no reason. Obviously, that wouldn't happen, but it would be funny.
I thought
they're
that was
releasing
really
FIFA
strange.
14 just because.
I thought it was really strange that like their whole Stadia Connect today was like Destiny and Doom Eternal and Fallen Order, and it's like I don't understand why they don't have new games.
Yeah.
On that platform, like and maybe it's really hard to get that infrastructure working in a streaming platform, but like it's really a bummer.
Right? Yeah, it's like when will they reach a point where new games are day and date on Stadia?
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
They did announce some games that are coming first to Stadia. Creta is an all ages game that lets players create multiplayer games and share them online. And then one that actually looks kind of fun was called Ember. It's another first on Stadia, and it's a firefighting game where players cooperate to save people in burning buildings, but it's cartoonish, and you have to use sort of like unusual ways to try and get people out. You throw them out the window and hope that they land in a safe spot. And I thought that looked
hell.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you didn't see this trailer?
Yeah, but they're cartoons, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Does it have like wonky physics? Is it like an Overcooked like?
Yes, that's the gist I got. It reminded me of that PlayStation Network downloadable game PS3 called Pain. Does anyone remember that? Where you launch a human from a shot and had to like cause as much destruction as you can. Yeah. I like games where you like do something and let it go and just see what happens. Didn't really like it.
Isn't that the whole thing?
Goat Simulator is a walking physics game, so I mean there's elements to that.
Now that it's been a couple of months and they realize the technology itself isn't something that people are interested in, they're really playing a lot of catch up in terms of library games, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They did announce Octopath Traveler is available today.
Oh wow.
And that's a very cool game. But like the coolest and most appealing thing to Stadia to me was that you'd be able to play like high-end PC gaming without a PC in 4K. And obviously like Octopath Traveler doesn't really fit that bill. None of these games do, you know.
Well, I will say I think with the like having the sports games and like also more I guess annual games like Just Dance is a good pool, because I do know people that would buy consoles just to keep up with Madden, just to keep up with Call of Duty, just to keep up with like 3 games. So, but what puts it in kind of an awkward position is I think Stadia would be great for people like that in the sense, hey, instead of buying a console, I can just get this and I can kind of save money in that way. But I think there's other issues with that as well, like in terms of what your friends are playing on. People usually tend to group up and stay on the same thing that they're already used to, even if it's maybe not the most affordable or maybe better options for them. And then the other issue is I feel like that kind of gamer is also the kind of gamer that wouldn't tune into the Stadia because they're not probably following games that closely. So I think Google Stadia struggled to get its message out to either of the sectors of gaming that would fit the bill, like people that are hardcore gamers and are excited to play the latest releases in 4K and just have it be easy, and also people that are casual and only buy a console for a few games. It kind of doesn't really satisfy either group, so they're sort of in this really awkward position of just trying to figure out what's something we can do to like bring some more people in.
I just want to point out, apparently some B-roll we were playing had audio on it, and the audio was really loud, so if Borba didn't catch that, keep an eye on that. Another game that was announced to be coming to Stadia is Rock of Ages 3. Is anyone familiar with this series?
No.
Oh,
I remember. So the first,
is like the one that you like roll a rock.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like the first Rock of Ages was an Xbox Live arcade game that I played, years and years ago, and I just can't believe it's like a series with a third entry that's coming out later this year still.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like that's basically the gist of what they announced today they showed another trailer for Doom Eternal, but I don't think they have a release date for when Doom Eternal is going to be on Stadia yet. So it's like the service is like it still just doesn't make any sense for someone like me.
Doom Eternal came out for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC on March 20th, 2020. So it will be on Google Stadia March 20th, 2021.
Yeah, something
that
like
seems to be the general rule of thumb. You got to give it about a year.
There's just like any game on Stadia that looks appealing to me, I've already played on my other consoles, you know.
Right.
And none of these first on Stadia things are really gonna attract me. So I don't know. Anybody agree or disagree?
No, I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
I have a tough time. I have a tough time with it because I think it's a cool concept, and I don't want to root for anything to fail or have a rough time or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it just seems to me like anytime, even covering today's news on social, people like the general consensus is like, oh, we're still trying to do this. Like it's kind of a bummer to see, honestly, that the audience isn't there for it, except for one guy. There's one guy that follows us on Twitter that constantly comments on every single thing that we tweet. That's like, why not on Stadia? When for Stadia? And it's like, damn, this guy loves Stadia. It's great.
Isn't it crazy that GTA 5 is not on Stadia?
Yeah, it's on everything.
Yeah.
It's on everything. It's the most successful entertainment thing ever. Just put it on Stadia.
Is Resident Evil 4 on Stadia? I feel like
I don't think so.
I feel like that's the one that's on like every single console.
Yeah,
there's also Skyrim. We're missing Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim.
Missing Skyrim. They do have Red Dead Redemption 2, so that's why I'm like, why don't they have GTA 5?
Yeah, totally.
They don't have The Witcher either, or Witcher 3.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, we won't Stadia won't collapse because it won't sell systems or whatever services, I guess, because it's owned by Google, which owns everything.
Sure.
Yeah, but Google has a long history of pivoting off something that doesn't work pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So,
That's also true.
Mhm.
I still miss Google Reader to this day.
Oh yeah.
Let's move on to an interesting story from today. A developer's game just appeared on Nintendo Switch today, with the developer having no knowledge that it was happening, and it's actually missing some new features. This is a game called Indivisible that arrived on other platforms last fall. The Nintendo Switch version launched today. Developer Lab Zero Games had absolutely no idea what was happening, and it's missing the co-op mode and the New Game Plus modes, as well as some other recent additions. So Lab Zero Games, Mike Zamont, had tweeted about today. He said, our team found out because people on Twitter sent us congratulations. I had no idea. There was no release date announcement, no lead up PR at all. It's missing current features like co-op. The eShop art is the wrong image. This launch does not represent the quality standards of Lab Zero. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. It wasn't us. So what's happening here is probably the game is published by 505 Games. So I assume the publisher hired a port house to port this game to Switch, and then some sort of mix-up happened there. Is that what you assume, Matt?
Yeah, but I mean, I think he even names the studio that developed the port. Or at least I saw it recently. I saw it somewhere, but I can't find it now. But yeah, that's basically what happened. Is 505, who's publishing and in charge of the releasing of the game, just put out a version of it on the Switch, and the developer of the main version that came out on consoles and PC a while ago, just essentially disowned it, saying that this doesn't meet our standards of quality. It's fucking wild. It's wild.
Yeah,
Wow.
It is pretty crazy.
Sorry,
Matt did cusses, everybody.
That's how wild it is.
Yeah, I think the general comparison here that I've seen a lot on feeds today, social feeds today, is like even Jason Christoph here in the chat is pointing it out. He says this sounds like Cooking Mama in a weird way, and this is like the second sort of like surprise release on the Switch. There's some kind of weird disconnect happening between what's happening with publishers and developers and Nintendo there. Like, I think it's really interesting. It's especially like odd for me because I've been tracking Indivisible pretty closely since it was announced. It's a really cool little RPG that is like a really nice mix of a bunch of different genres. And so like I was so waiting for this to come to Switch. And then it got a Japanese release date a couple of weeks ago, but there was no word on Japanese release date for Switch, but there was no word on the US release date for Switch. And then this morning I woke up and looked at Twitter and saw this tweet from this developer that was like, well, I guess here it is. And ran to my Switch and booted up the eShop, and there it was. I downloaded it, and it's just like, that's so it's so strange. It almost feels like putting the game out to pasture there. You know, there's no fanfare, there's no marketing lead up. Like it's just like, well, okay, we just kind of plopped it on the eShop. Like, good luck.
Which is why I would give 505 Games the benefit of the doubt here and just assume that this was a mistake. I can't. It doesn't benefit them in any way I can see to do this on purpose, to just put it out without any sort of announcement and even put out the wrong version. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the co-op is a bigger conversation, but at least the new game plus that's missing is something that like you have to play through once anyway to get to. Right. So like there's still potential for that stuff to be patched in.
Yeah, yeah. I expect it to be patched in.
Yeah, but yeah, it's more so about like not like I'm sure I'm in a very small demographic here, but like I was waiting to play that game on the Switch. I was like waiting for that version specifically. So yeah, it's kind of like it's not a bummer because it's there now, but it must be for that those developers who are waiting for people like me to be there like the very minute that it drops.
You know? Yeah. Zaymont did tweet a follow-up explaining some more information. He says, "Hey, finally got some Indivisible RPG Switch info. Switch version was apparently always intended to have a day one patch. This is indeed the release build, but without any patches. Co-op NG Plus were not intended to be day one patches either, but are intended to be added later on for the Switch version." I mean, and he does say that like even without co-op and new game plus, he says that the frame rate is pretty stable on the Switch, even in handheld mode. So he's not like dragging the porting developer under the bus or anything like that. He's just he is sad about these missing features though.
Yeah. It must be weird for a developer though to like have someone else handle porting your game, and then you have it's like your baby that you made, but then someone else has like put all this work into it, like, and like maybe they messed it up,
Damon, imagine that you write and record a new record, and then one morning you wake up and somebody just tweets at you like, "Hey, Damon, love the new record, great work." Like, so weird. Like that would be such a weird feeling.
That's everyone's biggest fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a bummer because this game actually, like, I played it on the PS4, but I would have preferred to play it on the Switch. Like, it's kind of that kind of game.
It's a kick-ass. Like, I played, about an hour and a half of it this morning, and like, it's a great port. Like, it looks beautiful. It runs really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I played a bit of it on PS4 when it came out last fall, but then I got distracted by other, big games that were coming out because it's the fall. So I'd love to check it out on Switch, but I also have other big games that I'm playing right now, like Final Fantasy VII. So we'll see when I can get to it. But it is a cool game. And Janet, have you checked out Indivisible?
No, I haven't. But then do I do it on the Switch if that's the case? Like, do you think that matters? Like,
wait, do you want to play co-op?
No. I'm okay. Okay. Like I wonder how like the, if we're thinking in terms of like the developer, like if they would prefer people play it on a different platform because of like what happened or what their feelings are on it. I know that in the thread they replied and were like, well, it is 20% off, so I guess buy it. So, I understand that because it's already out there, so you might as well get the sales of it. I'm not sure if it's hurting or helping if I were to purchase it there. It's kind of an interesting situation.
I mean, I'd say if it's running fine and you don't need co-op or New Game Plus, the Switch is probably the way to go.
It feels like a Switch game to me. Like just playing, like I know that's kind of a silly thing to say, but like the way that it's presented, like the style of game that it is, like it feels like a great little Switch indie. Like I'm really glad that I got it on that platform. Plus, it's a nice game to take on the go, I think. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, before we move on to our last couple of topics, I think it's time for a backpack break.
Hey,
yeah.
Matt talk about his backpack collection for years now on this show.
No, what?
It's time for him to prove that he is a backpack enthusiast.
Okay. This was intended to be a running joke while we were in the studio, but we're at home where all my backpacks live, so I guess it became a real thing.
Yeah.
I got one. I got one right here.
I'm so excited.
It's called the Evergood CPL 24.
Wow.
24-liter everyday work bag that I use. This is my office bag. It has a little Bridges patch from the Hickey Death Stranding. I don't know if you know. And it's great. I love it. It's made of like a nylon kind of thing. It's pretty water resistant, so I can take it out in the rain. It's got a separate laptop compartment right here, so my laptop doesn't like mingle with my main compartment goodies.
Yeah, you don't want that
in here. No. And that's it. I love it. It's my office bag.
What's What score do you give it?
I would give this one a 9 out of 10.
Wow, an amazing backpack.
Actually, one of the great things about this one is it has this really interesting harness system, right? That kind of like conforms to your back, right?
Cool.
You see how this like extends out this way? This part like hugs the top of your shoulder, so it feels like it's like really close to your back, which is great for weight distribution.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing what you're talking about now.
Yeah. Anyways, that's why this is literally my favorite like work bag. If you're looking for one, it's a little pricey. It's like $200, I think, online. But you get one for like $150 on eBay. But yeah, highly recommended.
So that's where that Joy-Con money went.
I can't afford Joy-Con replacements because I spend all my money on bags.
You say you've got about 15 backpacks, is that right?
Like 10.
10.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So over the next couple months, you'll be able to share all of your backpacks.
Until we get back into the office, in which case it's over. This segment ends.
I fear that you will be able to share all of your backpacks.
Yeah, more than likely. All right, we got a release date for the Destroy All Humans remake. So many remakes these days. Destroy All Humans launches on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Google Stadia on July 28th. I was just wondering when we were going to get day and date games on Google Stadia.
This is an interesting one. Yeah, this is an interesting one because like I missed Destroy All Humans back when it was originally released, and people seem very stoked for this remaster. Like the couple times that we've posted about it on social feeds has really popped off. Like people are, I think it's just like that right age demographic that like you put it when you're a kid and now you're an adult and you want to go back to it, and like people love this game.
I think that's exactly right. I skipped it because IGN gave it a 7 back in the day, and it just didn't seem like it was like,
yes,
really needed to play.
A 7 on the IGN scale, as it's known, bad.
I just like you can't play everything. So if
it's not as good as Matt's backpack, I don't know if I'm gonna make time for
even
it.
the point.
Like what IGN wrote about it at the time, 15 years ago, was Destroy All Humans is a very basic box of good and bad free roaming shooting. It features all the underdeveloped and totally unessential components of other notable and forgettable open world action games. Yet it also boasts terrific personality, a great premise, and some generally solid action. So I guess at the time that didn't really sound like something I needed to play. But I think you're exactly right, Zach. It's 15 years old. People that are 30 years old now, they played it when they were 15 or around that age. Yeah, they've got great memories of playing that as a kid and they want to play it again.
Yeah, I didn't play the original, but I've heard a lot about this game even before the remake was discussed. I watched like a lot of roundup YouTube videos where it'll be like, oh, hidden gems on this system or best of whatever. And this game comes up a lot, and it is one of those games where it's not that, at least according to people's perceptions, it's not that it's remarkable. It's charming, it's fun, it's kind of basic, but it's a good time. So it falls into that category of games that aren't great, but are still really enjoyable to play and worth checking out. So hopefully that still is true when the remake comes out, and that we don't all realize, actually, never mind, because that could also happen as well. But I'm excited to jump into this version because it is presumably the better version of what's there because it's the remake and it's made for, modern gen consoles. So I think it should be.
Yeah.
I think there's like a good case for these old like THQ kind of games, open world, little platform, little shooty, SpongeBob, Destroy All Humans style thing that, they're not like, if I had to like critically review them, I probably would also give them maybe like a 6 or a 7. But I'm
gonna say something controversial here. And
here we go.
I can't wait for SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom rehab.
A lot of people can't wait. I don't get it.
You're not alone. There are dozens of you.
Top tier 3D platformer, and it looks great. And I think that I'll play that when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, same. I'm also buying into the hype because there's so much of it.
Sponge hype.
Yeah. I want one thing and one thing only from that era, and that's
backpacks.
No. Hit and run.
Yeah, me too. That's the one.
Yeah, that would be really good.
A lot of people want
that. Those
That's
old I wouldn't say racing games, but like car-based. Like I don't know how you lump that category, but like that Crazy Taxi, like those are. I still love those games.
Well, I think you're thinking of Simpsons Road Rage, which is like a Crazy Taxi.
Oh yeah.
Hit and Run was a GTA ripoff and had like as a Simpsons fan, just hundreds of Simpsons references and in jokes. It was really, really good and really funny.
Matt, it's funny that you mentioned that a lot of these older THQ games are good candidates for remasters because we're also getting Saints Row the Third remaster next month.
Mm-hmm.
Just point that out.
Is that supposed to be Matt? You're muted. We can't hear you. Is that supposed to be the best one?
Well, it's people go back and forth between 3 and 4. I like 3 better.
Is this like a Mega Man 1 or Mega Man 2 versus Mega Man 3 argument?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
There you go. Now you're back.
Yes.
Am I quiet?
No, you're doing good.
Okay, cool. Never mind. Borba says I'm quiet. I don't know.
Yeah,
No, I
well,
don't
you
think
know.
so.
Oh, well,
you know
then
what
you
they-
probably are, actually. You're not quite to me, but...
You know what they say about Borba? He's a liar. Just kidding. Nobody says that.
One of our commenters on this Destroy All Human story, All-Star 738 says, low-key looking forward to this more than Ghost of Tsushima.
Wow.
What?
I mean, it'll definitely be
They're both out the
easier
same
and
month.
probably shorter than Ghost of
Ah.
Tsushima. It's one of those situations where I think, you know, if you're going to play both, knock this one out really quick and then dive into something like more expansive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Destroy All Humans out July 28th. Day and date on Google Stadia. Let's move on to final story. Phil Spencer has been talking about an Xbox Series X feature that he believes will dramatically change the feel of game. It'll feel like the difference between 2D and 3D gaming. The feature is called dynamic latency input. And this is something he said on Twitter. I'm very focused on the work we're doing around dynamic latency input. In my view, the feel of games this upcoming generation will change as dramatically as any since 2D to 3D, given CPU upgrade, DLI, dynamic latency input, memory bandwidth, and SSD. So does anyone feel like they have a good grasp of what dynamic latency input is?
I wish Bo was here.
Yeah. What?
Yeah,
You
I
live with
also
him.
wish. Bo was
Wait a
here.
minute. He's supposed to be there. Where is he?
He's busy, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
want this would be the whole thing.
Just yell through your wall. Hey, Bo, come in here and talk about dynamic latency for 3 minutes. He'll do it.
I don't think he'd
Well,
appreciate it.
IGN.com says dynamic latency input is a new system within the Xbox Series X, which synchronizes input immediately with what is displayed, making controls more precise and responsive. On a technical level, the controller will transmit input to the console just before the game asks for it, which will keep the player's analog and digital inputs in sync with the game they're playing. So is it predictive?
No, I do know this actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Google Stadia. Funny enough, Google Stadia uses a similar system. That's how they prevent latency from online gaming, right? There's an AI algorithm that does predict that, like, chooses a number of predictions of like what potential inputs that you could be doing, and it does it like super fast because it's a computer and it's like a million times smarter than human brains. And so then it's just like, okay, you can possibly do this, and it'll account for all of them. And then once you actually do put in the input that you end up doing, it already configured to it.
So Matt, is it fair to say that it's essentially like queuing up the options, and then so when you press it, it like has it ready to go, basically?
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much. That's how Stadia intended to overcome any potential latency between their controller and the game, which runs off a data server.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so this is a similar system where Microsoft is going to do that, except directly, and presumably it might be faster because you're doing it with a console in your room instead of a data center miles away. Not millions of miles away, but who knows? It
It's
could
a
be. I
data
don't know where
center.
Google's data centers are, but yeah,
It's on the moon.
it's on the moon. It's an
Yeah.
underwater base called
That's
Raptor.
On the moon.
Yeah.
I don't think I understand. It queues up the possibilities like a button press, a digital button press is just on or off. Like what has to be queued up?
Well,
like
I mean, it could be like your direction, you know?
If I can punch or kick,
Yeah.
I only gonna push one of those, like those options. Like what really has to be, what time is being saved, and how does it know if I'm gonna punch or kick?
Well, that's what the robot figures out, and that's for you to just listen to your gut, I guess.
Just listen to the robot.
Yeah. Well, the robot knows you better than you know you. That's
Wow.
I've always thought that about robots.
Yeah.
Janet, do you buy into this?
I believe that I believe in the sense that, like, I don't think he's lying about the existence of dynamic latency within the Xbox Series, but I don't see this moving forward like my gaming experience, and I think it might be a matter of what kind of games you play. If you play games that are very twitchy or you suffer from latency issues, or maybe it'll make the experience on a base Xbox Series X better, because there's still rumors about them having another model. But I don't see this being, like he mentions comparing it like as the jump from 2D to 3D, and I just don't think that shift is going to be that huge, especially because 2D to 3D, that's something that cuts across all genres. And I feel like dynamic latency, like personally, outside of frame rate issues like I had with, Fallen Order, I personally don't feel like I have latency issues with my already as it is. So
I don't think I play enough games where latency would really matter all that much to me, to be honest.
Yeah, neither do I. I'm not like a shooter kind of game.
Yeah, I don't play like competitive multiplayer shooters or anything. Like the majority of the stuff that I play is single player, and so like latency is neither here nor there to me.
I mean, maybe in a platformer, right? It would feel even more.
Maybe in SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
the real next gen showcase is SpongeBob. Battle for Bikini Bottom.
That's
Which
right.
means you're gonna wait and play SpongeBob on Xbox Series X.
That's right. That's the definitive version of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Guys, I just wanted to point out real quick over here on YouTube chat, Suhail Sama says, man, I love golfing. And I just want to give a shout out to golf, underrated sport. Very
especially video game golf.
Video game golf is dope.
Where's Mario Golf? Why is there hasn't been a Mario Golf since that one on 3DS?
What if EA
They're probably gonna bury it in a direct at some point?
What if EA brought back Tiger Woods golf this year? That would be a mistake. But anyway, moving on.
Video game golf better than real golf.
But I don't know, man. The shift to 2D to 3D, like Janet pointed out, that was pretty revolutionary. The first time that I played Mario 64, I think that was my first 3D game, and I was like, pretty mind blowing. If games on Xbox Series X just have slightly lower latency and I can't even tell the difference, I don't think that's going to feel quite the same as when I played Mario 64 for the first time.
Yeah, well, also, how old were you when you played Mario 64 for the first time?
I don't want to reveal that because it was older than probably most people watching this show.
Right. But you're younger and more impressionable, right? So
yeah, I guess so.
Only a little bit. But I do think times I've been floored outside of 2D and 3D have been, like, the existence of the Nintendo Switch was really like mind-blowing to me when the first time I docked it and undocked it and really saw that it was an instantaneous switch, no pun intended, like was really incredible, and it opened up how I would be playing games for this generation. Like if I can get it on Switch, unless it's a high-powered game like Witcher where that looks and plays just a lot better on every other platform, I will get it on Switch. Like I've bought games on Switch that I wouldn't have bought if they weren't on Switch, just because I'm like, I want to play my Switch. It's, it's casual. I take it out, I dock it. It has so much flexibility. And then the only other time that comes to mind that I was like floored by how games have progressed was the first time I played, I think it was Metal Gear Solid 2, and the opening cinematic where he's like on the bridge and he's smoking a cigarette and it's raining. That just stuck with, like, I've never forgotten that moment. Like I can visualize it instantaneously because I thought it was so beautiful. And I remember turning to my brother and being like, oh my God, this looks like a movie. And I don't know why I said that, because I had definitely seen movies before. And even back then it didn't look like a movie. But that's how floored I was with how beautiful games can look. So I think in terms of making a big shift, what I would be surprised if we can get the visual fidelity even better than it already is. And that's one thing that appeals to me about PS5, because I think the updates they're making to audio can be really immersive, because I do feel like there have been auditory moments in games that have impacted me and have hit different than they would have if I wasn't playing with the sound on or didn't have headphones on. So yeah, I'm hard pressed to think that latency of all things is going to floor everyone, because I feel like it's hard to even perceive it unless you're playing, like I said, a shooter or something.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that just about brings us to the end of another episode of News, Games, and More. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Tuesday afternoon. I don't know about you guys. I'm having sushi tonight. We ordered sushi omakase dinners from a restaurant in San Francisco, and I'm going to pick them up in an hour.
Sounds
very
great.
excited. I haven't had sushi in a long time.
I've been experimenting with a new recipe that I call just bunch of stuff. Where I just put a bunch of stuff in a bowl, and then I call that dinner, and then So
hey,
that also sounds
online.
good.
I might try that.
Sure, yeah, I'll let you know. It's frozen vegetables and noodles and Pop-Tarts. It's weird.
Fun fact: the Japanese word omakase translates to bunch of stuff.
Oh,
What? Really?
No.
Oh.
Viewers, don't forget to tune into our Watch From Home theaters this week. Tomorrow, Wednesday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, we are going to be watching Star Trek First Contact with director Jonathan Frakes. And then Thursday, at the same time, we're watching Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. I want to point that again. Chris Hemsworth will be tuning into Watch From Home Theater on IGN. And again, that's at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Borba. My name is Damon. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.